arrogant boxer forced a young black Jamaican man to fight to humiliate him. Then the unthinkable happened. "Look what we have here," Victor Stone sneered, pointing to the 17-year-old who had just walked into the elite Brooklyn gym. "Looks like someone got lost on the way to the community center." The sound of punches hitting the heavy bags stopped abruptly. All eyes turned to Keshawn Carter, who was holding a worn sports bag and wearing tattered sneakers. His dark skin contrasted with the immaculate whiteness of the exclusive environment where monthly fees cost more than 2 months' minimum wage. Victor Stone, men's world boxing champion for 1 year, was known not only for his lethal fists, but for his even sharper tongue. At 25, he had built a career based on social media taunts and controversial statements that generated millions of views. His latest Instagram post already had 400,000 likes. A photo of him flexing his muscles with a caption, "When you're naturally superior, you don't have to pretend to be equal." "Sorry," Keshawn muttered, checking the address on his cracked cell phone. "I thought this was the youth scholarship program." Victor's laughter echoed through the gym like an annoying siren. "Scholarship program? Buddy, this isn't a charity. We train real athletes here, not social experiments." Keshawn Carter had arrived in the United States just 5 months ago, bringing with him the dreams of a Jamaican family who had saved every penny to give him a chance. He worked 15 hours a day as a janitor to pay for a room he shared with 3 others in Queens. The scholarship program was his only chance to train at a decent facility. "The program exists," said a firm voice. Tina Rogers, veteran trainer and owner of the gym, emerged from her office with a folder in her hand. "And Keshawn Carter is on the approved list." Victor rolled his eyes dramatically. "Really, Tina? Are you going to turn my training facility into an NGO? My sponsors won't like that at all." "Her sponsors pay for results, not for your opinion about who trains here," Tina replied dryly. But Victor wasn't finished. He approached Keshawn with a smile that looked more like a threat. "You know what? Since you want to train with the big girls so badly, how about we prove whether you really deserve to be here?" The gym fell silent. Everyone knew what was coming next. "A friendly spar," Victor continued, savoring every word. "You against me, 3 rounds. If you can last, you can stay. If not..." He made a dismissive gesture with his hand. Keshawn felt the weight of everyone's gaze. He knew this was a trap. A public humiliation designed to break his spirit before he even began. But there was something in his eyes, a flame that Victor couldn't quite identify, that remained unshaken. "I accept," Keshawn said calmly. Victor frowned, waiting for tears or pleas. "Are you sure? Because when I'm done with you, you'll question whether it's worth dreaming so big." "I'm sure," Keshawn repeated, and for the first time since he had arrived, he smiled. What Victor Stone didn't know was that he was about to find out why. In the slums of Montego Bay, Jamaica, Keshawn Carter was known by a very specific nickname, Thunder. And like all thunder, he only showed his true power when the storm hit. While Victor was already planning how to turn the humiliation into viral content for his social media, Tina Rogers watched the determined gleam in Keshawn's eyes and felt a familiar chill, the same one she felt when she recognized a truly special talent disguised as apparent vulnerability. If this story of prejudice and determination is moving you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what happened in those 3 rounds was so unexpected that even today, people wonder how an ordinary young man from Queens managed to rewrite the rules of a sport dominated by the elite. News of the friendly fight spread through the gym like wildfire. In less than an hour, several boxers, trainers, and even some sports journalists were on their way. Victor Stone versus an unknown Jamaican. It promised to be the kind of cruel entertainment that social media loved to consume. 3 rounds, 16 Oz gloves, Tina Rogers established, trying to downplay the impending massacre. No bets, no live broadcast, just sparring. Victor laughed. "Tina, relax, it'll be quick. It probably won't even make it to the 2nd round." He was already recording stories on Instagram, narrating for his 1.8 million followers. "Guys, you won't believe what's happening here. Some random guy wants to challenge me. I'm going to teach him a lesson in humility he'll never forget." The comments started pouring in. "Destroy him, Victor. These people need to know their place. Show him why you're the king." While Victor basked in the attention, Kishan silently made his way to the locker room. His hands weren't shaking, they never did before a fight, but his heart was racing with a mixture of controlled anger and painful memories he tried to keep buried. Tina followed him. Kishan, you don't have to do this. I know the scholarship program is important, but it's not worth getting hurt over his arrogance. I won't get hurt, Kishan replied calmly, testing the borrowed gloves. He's been world champion for a year. He has professional technique, knockout power, experience, and I have something he'll never have, Kishan interrupted, looking directly into the veteran trainer's eyes. Tina frowned. What would that be? Hunger. The word echoed in the modest locker room. Tina Rogers had trained hundreds of athletes over the course of 29 years, but she had rarely heard that word spoken with such conviction. There was something in Kishan's eyes, an intensity she had recognized only in true predators of the ring. Tell me something, Tina said, sitting down next to him. Why did you take it? Why not just ignore his taunts? Kishan closed his eyes for a moment. The memories came flooding back. The streets of Montego Bay, his father's screams begging him to stop fighting, the feel of fists connecting with surgical precision, the nickname Thunder whispered with fear and respect in the slums. Because I've lived this story before, he finally said. People like Victor think they can break us with words, with contempt, with the certainty that we are inferior, but they've forgot one important thing. What would that be? Those who grow up fighting for survival don't fight just for sport. They fight to exist. Tina felt a chill run down her spine. There was something prophetic in those words, as if Kishan were revealing not only his motivation, but prophesying Victor's fate. Outside, Victor continued his performance for the cell phone cameras. Look at what that guy is wearing, he sneered, pointing to Kishan's worn-out sneakers left in the locker room. I bet he's never even stepped in a real ring. He probably learned how to box by watching YouTube. Laughter echoed through the gym, but some of the more experienced boxers remained silent. There was something about Kishan's posture, the way he had accepted the challenge without hesitation, that aroused an instinctive caution. Marissa Willis, a former middleweight champion who now trained at the gym, whispered to her sparring partner, "Man, I don't know. I've seen that calm before. Sometimes the quiet ones are the most dangerous." Victor, however, was too far gone in his own arrogance to notice the warning signs. You know what the problem is with people from third-world countries? He continued to the cameras. They confuse desperation with skill. They think that just because life is hard, they automatically know how to fight. Kishan emerged from the locker room at that very moment wearing simple shorts and a tank top that revealed surprisingly defined arms for someone who had supposedly never trained seriously. His movements were fluid, economical, like a cat preparing to attack. "Ready to learn?" Victor asked sarcastically. "Always," Kishan replied. What Victor Stone didn't know and could never have imagined was that Thunder Carter had started fighting at the age of 7 on the streets of Montego Bay, not for sport or fun, but because it was either that or starve. By the time he was 11, he was beating girls 2 years older than him in underground fights that earned enough money to keep his family alive for another week. By 15, he had become a local legend, not for his brutality, but for his uncanny ability to anticipate moves and counterattack with thunderous speed, hence the nickname he carried like a scar of honor. When he finally got his visa to the United States, he swore to himself he would never set foot in a ring again. But some promises are made to be broken when dignity is at stake. Tina adjusted Kishan's gloves, noticing something that surprised her. His hands were perfectly relaxed, but his muscles had the density of someone who had trained his entire life. "Kishan, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Have you really never fought before?" Kishan smiled for the first time since he had arrived at the gym. A small, almost imperceptible smile, but one that carried secrets capable of rewriting the entire situation. "Define," he replied. At that moment, while Victor continued his performance for social media, and spectators mentally bet on how long the amateur would last, something extraordinary was about to happen. Because sometimes when we underestimate someone based on appearances and preconceptions, we discover that the real predators are exactly those who have learned to camouflage their strength until the exact moment to reveal it. While Victor Stone continued his humiliation campaign on social media, he had already posted 15 stories mocking the Jamaican amateur, something completely different was happening behind the scenes at the gym. Tina Rogers had decided to investigate Keshawn Carter further. 29 years of training boxers had taught her that true strength rarely shouts. And there was something about this young man that defied all logic. His hands didn't have beginner's calluses. His reflexes were too fast. And above all, his calmness was unnatural for someone about to face a world champion. "Keshawn," Tina called when he finished adjusting his gloves, "can I see you do some basic moves, just to gauge your level?" What happened over the next 5 minutes made Tina question everything she thought she knew about natural talent. Keshawn moved around the ring with a fluidity that seemed to defy gravity. His punches on the heavy bag had a surgical precision that she had only seen in fighters with decades of experience. "My God," Tina muttered to herself. "Who is this guy really?" At that moment, the gym door opened and someone walked in who made Keshawn freeze completely. It was Winona Carter, a 49-year-old woman with scarred hands and eyes that had seen a lot. His aunt, who had flown in from Orlando as soon as she heard about the fight through a mutual cousin. "Thunder," Winona said simply. The nickname echoed through the gym like a gunshot. Some of the older boxers frowned as if trying to remember where they had heard that name before. "Aunt Winona, what are you doing here?" Keshawn asked, his voice betraying nervousness for the first time. "I came to see if my nephew has completely lost his mind," she replied in English with a thick Jamaican accent. "I thought we agreed that those days were behind us." Tina approached, intrigued. "Do you two know each other?" Winona looked at Tina with the expression of someone deciding how much of the truth to reveal. "I've known this boy since he was 7 years old, and I can assure you that Victor Stone has no idea what he's about to face." While this conversation was taking place in the corner of the ring, Victor was on the other side of the gym recording more content for TikTok. "Guys, look at this," he whispered to the camera. "He even brought his family to watch him get humiliated. How cute, right?" They'll have a lot to console him about later. The comments on his posts had exploded. "Victor is going to destroy that guy. Teach him not to mess with Americans. Show him what real boxing is." Winona watched Victor for a few seconds, then shook her head in disgust. "Arrogant, just the type Thunder used to. Well, let's just say she taught humility on the streets of Montego Bay." "Aunt, please," Keshawn begged. "Don't tell anyone. I don't want anyone to know." "Know what?" asked Tina, growing more curious. Winona sighed deeply. "Tina, can I call you that? You seem like a decent woman. So I'm going to tell you something that might change your perspective on this fight." She pointed to Keshawn, who was now training alone in the corner. "That boy over there was considered the best street fighter Montego Bay ever produced." "Street fighter," Tina repeated. At 11, he defeated women 3 times his size. By 14, he had a reputation that made gangsters respect him. Thunder Carter wasn't just a nickname. It was a warning. Winona paused. "He stopped fighting when he got his visa to come here. He swore he'd never set foot in a ring again." Tina looked at Keshawn with new eyes. "And why did he agree to fight Victor?" "Because," Winona said, "some people confuse kindness with weakness. And Thunder never tolerated being underestimated because of his color, his gender, or his background." Across the gym, Victor had finished another series of posts mocking Keshawn and was now talking to his manager on the phone. "Michelle, this is going to go viral. A world champion against an amateur. It's the kind of content sponsors love. Total domination. Just make sure you don't hurt him too badly, Victor," said the manager's voice over the speakerphone. "We don't want any lawsuits for bodily injury." Victor laughed loudly. "Michelle, relax. It'll be so quick he won't have time to hurt himself. Seriously." Winona overheard this conversation, and her eyes narrowed. "Tina, can I give you some advice? Bet on Thunder." "Why?" "Because Victor Stone may be a world champion, but he's never fought for survival. He's never faced someone who learned that losing means not eating. Thunder isn't here to look pretty. He's here to prove a point. At that moment, Kishan approached them, sweat dripping down his face after his intense workout. "Aunt Winona, what are you telling Tina?" "The truth, kid. That you're not the helpless victim that this American thinks you are." Kishan looked around the gym, noticing that some of the other boxers were now watching him with renewed curiosity and respect. "Aunt? I really don't want to what? Show them who you really are, Thunder. You've spent the last few months scrubbing floors because you wanted to start a new life. But when someone tries to humiliate you because of your color, your background, your past, no new life can erase what's in your blood." Tina felt a chill. "Kishan, can I ask you something? Why did you really accept this fight?" Kishan was silent for a long moment, staring at Victor, who continued recording content from the other side of the gym. When he finally spoke, his voice had a harshness Tina had never heard before. "Because people like Victor Stone think they can diminish us, humiliate us, put us in our place, based solely on the color of our skin or where we came from." He looked at me and saw an easy victim. A story for his social media, a joke to entertain his followers. Kishan paused. "What he doesn't know is that where I grew up, respect isn't given, it's earned. And when someone tries to take away our dignity..." He smiled, but there was something predatory about that smile. "Well, sometimes thunder has to remind people why storms are feared." At that moment, as Victor Stone continued his arrogant performance for the cameras, completely oblivious to the conversation that was changing everything just a few feet away, everyone in the gym realized they were about to witness something far beyond a simple friendly fight. It was the moment when years of silent humiliation would finally find their voice through the fists of someone who had learned on the hardest streets in the world that sometimes the only language certain people understand is that of force, applied with surgical precision. The bell rang, and the two fighters met in the center of the ring. Victor went on the attack immediately, throwing a flurry of quick jabs that sliced the air where Kishan had been a millisecond earlier. "What the hell?" Victor muttered, frowning as he saw his punches connect with nothing but air. Kishan moved like smoke, always one step ahead, always out of reach. His feet slid across the canvas with a fluidity that defied physics, as if he could predict every move before Victor even thought it. "Stay still, man," Victor shouted in frustration, increasing the force of his punches. Then it happened. At the exact moment Victor lost his balance after a poorly calculated cross, Kishan counterattacked. His left fist connected with the side of Victor's face with a sharp sound that echoed throughout the gym. Victor staggered backward, touching his face in disbelief. He had never been hit with such precision by a smaller opponent. "Impossible," he whispered, but Kishan was already moving again. What followed was a demonstration of martial artistry that reduced the gym to absolute silence. Kishan wasn't just fighting. He was conducting a symphony of controlled violence. Every punch was calculated, every movement had purpose. Every dodge seemed choreographed. Victor, desperate, tried to use his weight and reach advantage, but it was like trying to catch thunder with his hands. For every blow he landed, he received 3 in return. For every advance he made, Kishan had already anticipated and counterattacked. "Who is this guy?" someone in the audience shouted. Winona smiled from where she watched. "Thunder Carter," she murmured proudly. The moment of truth came in the second round. Victor, already panting and his face marked, realized he had made the biggest mistake of his career. His arrogant social media posts continued to be shared, but now the comments had completely changed in tone. "Victor is getting beaten up by an amateur. Where's the world champion? That Jamaican is destroying him." Jenna, his manager, shouted frantic instructions from the corner, but Victor could barely hear her over the roar of the crowd, which was now openly rooting against him. That's when Kishan decided to show his true colors. Thunder was never just a nickname, he said calmly, approaching Victor, who was backing away against the ropes. It was a warning. The combination that followed was so fast that the cell phone cameras could barely capture it. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut. 4 punches in less than 2 seconds, all connecting with surgical precision. Victor collapsed onto the canvas like a demolished building. The gym exploded. People screamed, cheered, filmed everything for social media. Victor tried to get up, but his legs wouldn't respond. For the first time in his life, the undefeated world champion had been knocked out by someone he had called a social project. 10! Shouted Tina, officiating the fight. Knockout! Kashan calmly walked over to the corner where Victor was being treated. You said you wanted to teach me a lesson, he said softly. I hope you learn that respect isn't earned by color, nationality, or bank account. It's earned by character. Victor looked at Kashan with eyes filled with tears of humiliation, and for the first time, something that could be respect. Jenna rushed over to check Victor's phone. His stories mocking Kashan had gone viral, but now for completely different reasons. Thousands of comments ridiculed his arrogance. Victor getting destroyed by the person he called an amateur. That's what happens when prejudice meets reality. Thunder Carter ended Victor's career in 3 rounds. Oh my God, Victor, Jenna said, showing him his phone. You have to see this. Your account lost 80,000 followers in the last hour. Sponsors are canceling their contracts. Victor took his phone with trembling hands. His last post mocking Kashan had become a memorial to his own humiliation. The comments were merciless. Who laughed last, laughed best. Jamaican taught that racist a lesson. Thunder Carter, arrogant Victor. Tina approached Kashan, who was being celebrated by the entire audience. Thunder, can I ask you something? Sure. Why didn't you tell them who you really were from the beginning? Kashan looked at Victor, who was still being helped to his feet, completely defeated physically and emotionally. Because sometimes people need to dig their own grave before they understand the size of the hole they've gotten themselves into. Winona hugged her nephew proudly. You're still Thunder. No, Aunt, Kashan replied, watching Victor being led out of the gym under a barrage of sarcastic comments. Thunder was who I needed to be to survive. Today, I showed who I really am. Someone who doesn't accept disrespect, but who fights for dignity, not cruelty. As the cameras continued to roll and videos of the knockout went viral on social media, one question hung in the air. Could a single fight rewrite not only 2 careers, but the way an entire community views prejudice, privilege, and the true measure of human strength? 3 months later, the contrast couldn't be more brutal. Victor Stone, once an undefeated world champion, sat in the modest apartment he had rented after losing his Orlando mansion. His sponsors had canceled all contracts after the viral video reached 40 million views in a week. Victor Stone, getting destroyed by the man he called an amateur, had become the most shared meme of the year, turning his arrogance into a global joke. Nike, Adidas, Gatorade, all the brands that once paid millions for his image, now refused to even return his calls. Jenna, his former manager, had been clear in their last conversation. Victor, you don't understand. It's not just about the fight you lost. It's about who you showed yourself to be. No one wants to associate their brand with prejudice and arrogance. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, Kashan Carter was signing his first professional contract with Golden Gloves Promotions. Value $1,500,000 0 cents for just the first 3 fights, with a renewal clause that could reach $40 million if he kept up his performance. Thunder Carter had become not just a sporting phenomenon, but a symbol of resilience. Brands that valued authenticity and overcoming adversity lined up to sponsor him. Under Armour launched an entire line inspired by his story, Earned, Not Given. Tina Rogers was in the gym office when she received an unexpected call. Hello, Tina. This is ESPN. We want to make a documentary about how you discovered Thunder Carter. I didn't discover anything, Tina replied honestly. He always knew who he was. He just needed someone to respect him before seeing his fists in action. The transformation of the gym had also been dramatic. The scholarship program, once a modest initiative, now received donations from across the country. Young people from disadvantaged communities arrived daily, inspired by Kashan's story. The waiting list had more than 400 names. Winona Carter visited her nephew regularly, always with the same pride shining in her eyes. Remember what I said about hunger? She asked during one of her visits. You prove that it's not about where we come from, but about the fire we carry inside. Victor, for his part, had tried several times to reinvent himself. He created a YouTube channel apologizing, but the comments were merciless. He tried to return to boxing, but no major promoter would accept his terms. His savings quickly evaporated without the income from sponsorships. In a desperate interview for a third-rate podcast, Victor finally said the word he should have said months earlier. I was completely wrong. Kashawn Carter wasn't just an exceptional fighter. He was a person I should have respected from the very beginning. My prejudice blinded me to his greatness. But the internet has a long memory. The clip became a meme again. Victor trying to apologize after losing everything. Kashawn, when he heard about the interview, showed the class that had always set him apart. "I don't have any anger toward him," he said during an interview with Sports Illustrated magazine. "Anger consumes those who carry it. I'd rather use my energy building bridges for other young men like me." His foundation, Thunder Dreams, had already helped 250 young men from disadvantaged communities obtain scholarships and sports opportunities. The foundation's first gym was to be opened in Montego Bay, Jamaica, in the same community where he had discovered that his fists could be more than weapons for survival. During the opening ceremony, broadcast live around the world, Kashawn held the microphone with the same hands that had knocked out a world champion. "This story is not about revenge," he said, his voice echoing through the speakers. "It's about dignity. It's about proving that respect is not earned by privilege, but by character." The audience erupted in applause. But he wasn't finished. Victor Stone gave me the greatest gift of his life. He underestimated me, and when someone underestimates you, you have a choice. You can let it destroy you, or you can use it as fuel to become unbeatable. Tina Rogers, watching from the front row, wiped away a discreet tear. She had trained champions for decades, but she had never seen anyone transform humiliation into inspiration with such elegance. Months later, when Thunder Carter became the unified world champion, knocking out his opponent in the same second round he had defeated Victor, the first person he thanked in his speech was not his trainer nor his family. "I want to thank all the people who tried to put me down, humiliate me, and put me in my place. You taught me that true power doesn't come from where we're born or the color of our skin. It comes from an absolute refusal to accept that others define our limits." Victor Stone watched that fight on television in his rented apartment alone. When the referee raised Kashawn's hand, declaring him the new world champion, Victor finally understood the difference between talent and greatness. A person can be born with talent, but greatness is forged in the furnace of adversity. Kashawn Carter hadn't just won a fight in that Brooklyn gym, he had rewritten the rules about what it means to be strong, about what it means to deserve respect, and most importantly, about how the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's becoming everything they said you could never be. And while Thunder Carter shone in the spotlight of global success, proving that some storms don't destroy, they purify and strengthen, a lesson echoed for anyone who has ever been underestimated, humiliated, or diminished. Never let anyone define your limits based on prejudice. The greatest victory is proving them completely wrong about who you really are. This story about Kashawn Carter truly moved me. It wasn't just a boxing match, it was a powerful reminder that dignity, resilience, and hunger for respect can overcome even the deepest prejudice. Seeing someone rise from being underestimated to becoming a symbol of strength was both inspiring and humbling. But what about you? How did this story make you feel? Have you ever been judged unfairly because of where you came from or how you look? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective and how you turn challenges into strength.